longtime friend of mine just inherited a grandfather clock from his parents. I remember the clock as a little boy going over to his house. It sat in the entry area of the house, and I just really enjoyed that clock. It was a big clock, and you could see the interior workings of it. I'd love to hear it chime. It was a neat clock, and I was really happy for him. He's happy to rehab that clock. I'm sure it touches him in a lot of ways. It doesn't work anymore, and he was asking me, did I know who might be able to fix such a thing? And I really don't know. I made some suggestions of who might know. But finding not only a repairman, but also the parts to that may be very difficult to do. It must be at least 50 years old, maybe 60, 70 years old, maybe even older than that. So it's going to be a challenge to be able to make that thing work. Well, of course, you don't need it for the time. The phone in your pocket has a much more accurate time than any wound-up clock could ever manage to do. But it would still be neat. I love it for the beauty of it and for the sentiment that's attached to it. It has real sentimental value to him, and I think to everyone that knew it, and so it'd be something valuable to keep working. Well, one of the kind of older images of God, and I think we really associate this with deism, is that God is like a clockmaker who makes this beautiful clock and winds it up and then sets it off from him and allows it to run on its own by its own power. But he stays removed from it. He's detached from it and runs more or less well, more or less accurately, but God is not involved. He's got it started, he created it, it's in its condition, and when it runs out of its wind-up will be the end of time. Well, it can even be an image, an idea of how we think of God in our life, but it isn't a Christian image, is it? It isn't how Christians believe that God acted in our world. God is not so impersonal with us. He did create this world. He does have a great deal of, he created with a great deal of beauty, and he does respect the boundaries that he has created, yet he's also intimately and personally involved in creation. Today we're reflecting on the Trinity, and I always find that a challenging thing to do. It's very challenging to reflect on the mystery of the Trinity. It's kind of beyond human comprehension. So I just give the basic synopsis that we have from tradition and from the teaching of the Scriptures, that the Father, the first person of the Trinity, sends his Son, the second person of the Trinity, to redeem the world by his suffering and death, and that in his return to the Father and the Son send the third person of the Trinity, the Holy Spirit, to sanctify, to lead, to guide the church, to lead it to all truth, as the Gospels say today. And this is teaching, I think, that is confirmed again and again throughout, especially in the Gospel of John, as Jesus says over and over, the Father and I are one. When he comes, the Spirit of truth will guide you to all truth. I will ask the Father, and he will send another, the Advocate, to plead on your behalf. So over and over again, and I'm just picking up a few of the areas in the Gospel of John, are certainly references that imply or understanding of the Trinity, one God in three persons. Yet for us that remains a challenging thing for us to decide. But I think in reflecting on the human condition, on kind of the story of salvation and how we learn about God, this is how we know the nature of God because of human salvation, it helps me to understand who God is. Sometimes I wonder, why didn't God just fix us? Why didn't he just metaphorically snap his fingers and restore us to our rightful condition, take away all the human problems, and get us back to the way he intended us to be created, the way he intended us to live together? Why didn't he prevent the problems in the first place? And sometimes he even asks, well, why didn't he just start with heaven in the first place? I don't have a good reason why he didn't start with heaven. That would have been a good idea, and I'd like to tell him that. So I don't have a way around that. He's not listening at this moment, but anyway. But why doesn't he fix us in that way, or that metaphorical snap of his fingers? Well, because God is not a deist. God is not the one who created this clock and sent it out into the world, and he lets it run as it is. Instead, he's intimately involved with us, and he created us not as an object, not as a thing, to be manipulated as he chooses. He created us as subjects who are free and subjects who have an intelligence, and he enables us to live in the world as free, independent, thinking beings. And because of that, the way that we are created, he can't just snap his finger, or so to speak, and change the conditions of our creation. Instead, he respects us and enters into creation with us in order to save us. This is why salvation takes on the character that it does, because he enables us to fix the world that through his Holy Spirit, enables us to fix the world. We're not going to do that. We're not going to fix the world in a perfect way, and he won't do it for us. He's not going to just come in and correct all of our errors. He allows us to act freely, and that means that we're going to not just make mistakes, but deliberately contradict his will and even act in an evil and destructive manner. Only in heaven will God restore the world, not just to the way he created it, but in a new and more wonderful way, making us his adopted children. The Trinity, I think, is a very hard thing for us to comprehend. But I think if we reflect on our human condition, then we can see more clearly who God is. This God who is the loving God, a creative God, a respectful God, in a certain sense, a very humble God, and that he has made us in his image. We are made in the image and likeness of God, and it's almost strange to say that we are God-like creatures ourselves. But through sin, we lost our image of God. We lost what it meant to be like God, but it was restored in the person of Jesus Christ. That restoration has given us his Holy Spirit and a new life of grace, the life of love that comes to us in his Holy Spirit. Today we reflect on the Trinity, and we reflect upon ourselves as we see the image of God within and the great call to be God-like in our life as well.